The New York Times recently published an article comparing the Beatles and Taylor Swift. They did hit on some good points, but it was a missed opportunity because they missed the most important thing, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. So, hi everyone, welcome back to the Ministry of Guitar. My name is Utkarsh Mohan. I'm coming to you from Singapore. As always, if you like what I'm doing, please do like, subscribe, and share. As I keep saying, just helps the algorithm. The algorithm is rather unforgiving, and your encouragement in terms of this kind of support really helps me keep wanting to make these videos. Now, I want to talk about a few things in the video, but I'll start off with what I talked in the beginning, which is the New York Times article. There was an article comparing Taylor Swift to the Beatles and then to Michael Jackson. It's a reasonable article. It's a very quantitative article in the sense that it gives a lot of numbers, etc. I think they did get one thing right. They did get what was right in terms of comparing the Beatles and Taylor Swift. Though you can compare them, and many people, including Billy Joel, have compared Taylor Swift to the Beatles. They did get one thing right, which is the Beatles happened over an incredibly concentrated period of time, 1963 to 1970. And all of their hits, everything was concentrated in that very short period. And also the way you classify music today, they had a lot more hits than what you think. Whereas Taylor Swift has been a bit of a slower burn since 2008. She's gradually been gaining momentum to the point where she is right now. So I think they got that point right. But I think they missed something very important. And what they missed, to me, is the root cause of all evil. No, not all evil, but definitely the less than great quality of popular music today. I say the word popular on purpose because there is amazing music all over the place. Not necessarily popular, there's a lot more music because of the ability of platforms such as Spotify or SoundCloud or whatever. But popular chart-topping music today, I think it has been well argued by many that it is not of the same quality that it used to be. And I'm not even a boomer, I'm not even Gen X, I'm a millennial, and I 100% agree with that. One explanation would always be evolving tastes. It's like the old man yelling at a cloud, you don't like today's music, blah, blah, blah. There is a bit of that. Nostalgia is a big factor. But I think what people didn't realize, and I really thought fairly adept organization like the New York Times should have gotten to, is the moneyballing of music, and how the moneyballing of popular music or the music industry has frankly ruined it from a music standpoint. Well, let's talk about this. What do I mean by Moneyball? I think we've seen the movie. I think it had Jonah Hill. Was it Brad Pitt in the movie? I think it was Brad Pitt. I can't remember. I've seen it a while ago, but it was really about how you would pick players for baseball teams in the US. You would do it qualitatively, using a bit of gut sense, looking at some numbers, but they turned it into a completely numeric, analytical venture comparing ROIs. And ROI is the key word. ROI stands for return on investment. ROI is the darling of the capitalist system. This is how all ventures work, where if you're investing a certain amount of money, how much money do you get in return? Now, this has always been a part of capitalism. It's been there forever, ever since you had the first issue of shares to people who wanted to sail ventures from Europe to try and explore and get riches from the New World, right? They used to finance the ships, etc., that went out from Portugal, that went out from England. So this is not new. What has changed in the last, I would say, 30, 40 years since the Beatles has been the sophistication of it. I would say till the information age, what was happening is that people were ultimately driven by a profit motive. Even the manager of the Beatles, was it Brian Epstein? Of course, it was Brian Epstein, right? Yes. And their record labels, of course, everybody was driven by profit. But they used to employ a relatively more human way of doing it. Not human in terms of humane, but human in terms of their approach. They exercised their judgment. They maybe had some numbers to go by, maybe how were the record sales. But it was not the most sophisticated process. It was like, I think this works. And if you see, because of this, there was a lot of latitude at that point in time, say in the 1950s and 60s and even 70s, for popular creative industries that relied on creative outputs such as Hollywood, such as music industry, the people creating such creative output, a bit of tongue twister in there, they had a lot of latitude to experiment. You had a lot of original scripts coming in Hollywood versus a lot of, today you have franchises, you have remakes. You had none of that. And as far as the Beatles were concerned, they were completely experimenting with the format. You had singles. Beatles kind of, you could say, made the concept album. They experimented with recording techniques. Now, as a business manager, what I'll tell you is that typically you don't experiment dramatically with critical things. You may do small experiments on the side to see how they go, but for most stable industries, you go with the tried and tested true model, reapply what works. And if you see what the Beatles were doing in the 1960s, that was the antithesis of that. They were experimenting. Now, fast forward to Taylor Swift period, what you see is exactly this approach, which is that you get a great songwriter, Max Martin, guy who's written, I think, more or almost as many hit songs as Lennon and McCartney. You have the correct format, you're optimizing the album and everything for all the different mediums, you have the perfect marketing plan. It's all beautifully or cynically optimized. And that is the difference. That is what has happened. The moneyballing of the industry is that earlier you had relatively smart people, but relatively less sophisticated methods using their best judgment. And within their best judgment, there was room for experimentation because nobody knew exactly what was right. But today you can crunch the data. You have all the data in terms of user behavior. How did this perform on Facebook? How did this perform on TikTok? How did this perform on YouTube? What got how many views? How does this work? And it's not only now with the social media, even earlier, even in the 90s, once you had some sort of more sophistication coming in. So if you think about even my company, where I used to work, of course, we have a lot more data now, but even in the 90s, you had data in terms of sales data, et cetera, et cetera. So you could constantly analyze and figure out, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that. So what has happened is a lot of these companies, which were typically based on little bit of numbers, but a lot of human judgment, have now become very, very numeric based, and they're literally using numbers as a means to determine output. This is true for what happened with Moneyball, with the baseball teams in the US, because now you can crunch, okay, this player, he costs 3 million, but really he should be worth 2 million. So don't buy him. But this person, he only costs 2 million. He should be worth 10 million. So buy him. It's a very quantitative exercise. And it's not only in creative ventures or sports ventures. If you look at how funds have worked, funds such as what you would say hedge funds or all of these large bankers who make all the money, what has happened is that these things have also become very, very numeric. There's something called quant, Quant, where versus a trader taking a call, I think the US dollar is going to decline, so let me short the US dollar. It doesn't happen like that anymore. You have 1,000 different indicators from what's happening with economic data coming in and helping people make this decision. So the whole world has been moneyballed because you have a lot more data available. You have a lot more sophisticated models and algorithms available to figure out how to maximize this. And you could say in certain ventures, it has been a good thing. If a sports team can use moneyballing to improve the quality and win, I think all for it. That's brilliant. Sports is about winning. If a fund needs to return a certain return to their investors, and they can use all the data to quantify it, great. But the problem for me is when you apply it to popular music and also popular creative ventures, popular music, film, television. The problem is, how do you measure success for any of these things? Of course, you can measure viewership, but then there is a quality of viewership. And the main way in which you measure it is actually bottom line, profit. So suddenly your music industry, which was always a record company, which was always a way to make money, now it literally is only optimizing for making money because it has the ability to do it because of all the data that's getting generated. And everything else is now, there is no space for anything else to happen. So say 40, 50 years ago, you could only measure the sales of a particular record. You could ask the band could experiment. You could have the same person who is writing songs, singing the songs, and it was not hyper specialized. But today, everything has been measured. Okay, this is what you need to do. This is this person, he has a track record of creating hit singles. This is this person, they can, they are the best, probably the best person for the instruments that you need to do. What you have then is the ability to hyper specialize, hyper optimize for everything towards the end goal of maximizing revenue. Earlier also you were trying to maximize revenue, but you weren't as good at it. But now you're better at it. But because the company is so good at maximizing revenue, there is certainly not that much space for the music or the creative venture to really blossom. Think about this in the movie industry as well, right? What happened in the last 20 years? It was the superhero franchise. It was Avengers and Marvel and goodness knows 25,000 variations. It was remakes. This was all algorithm, revenue maximizing, data crunching in action. So if you think that the music industry today is, or popular music today is rather uniform, it is rather bland, it is rather formulaic, it is true. It is definitely there for a reason, because that is what the data and all the number crunching is telling the music executives to do. For the executive, you may think of the musician as the main person, but if you're a person running a company, and I can give you this perspective from having run the business myself, which you guys know, long-time viewers, the product is just one part of the equation. You as a business person, you are trying to maximize revenue and profit. The product is a part of it. If I can find a way to optimize the product, either by paying less money to the product, spending less money on developing the product, say, for example, using AI instead of real musicians for most of the instruments, maybe creating an AI personality which doesn't need me to have a real human being with their variations of, and their, whatever complications come with a real human being, I will do that. It's all about maximizing money. I now have the tools at my disposal. I have the data. I have everything. So that's literally what's going on right now. And it's only going to get worse. At least today, you can have the confidence that most of the musicians and most of the music you are hearing, majority of it has a human touch to it. The instrument part of it is probably going to go away. It's already going away. You already have drum loops. You already have virtual instruments. But there's probably going to be a point in time where you'll have nothing. It'll be all synthesized simply because it's cheaper and more reliable. And even the character, the humanity of the artist may just go away, because you can create a humanity, you can create a personality through online personas. I mean, you already have AI influencers who are rather lucrative. So this is not to be the prophet of doom and gloom. This is just starting off from a point that recognize that this is the inevitable result of capitalistic principles, which is all about maximizing production, hyper specializing, right? The whole idea, the basic idea of capitalism, which is, providing a return on capital, specializing tasks. The classic example of a clockmaker, instead of one person making a clock at a time, you have different people creating different parts of the clock, and that's how you get a more efficient assembly, etc., etc. This is the culmination of capitalistic principles hitting modern technology, and this is how it's going to go. There's only going to be more moneyballing. Enjoy the human musicians and icons and the instrumentalists while you can. All right, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you noticed this moneyballing in other industries as well, in your life as well? Tell me about it. Tell me whether you vehemently disagree and you think that the music of the 2020s, the popular music, is the best ever. I would love to hear all of these opinions. As always, I'll see you next time.